Welcome to another fantastic Pantheon Roundtable. I'm Dan. We're joined by Rob, of course. Today, for our Pantheon guests, we have usuals, Salim, Ben. How you guys doing today?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
And a rare treat for us, we get to talk to Tony, the story guy, the man, myth, legend himself. Tony, how are you?
I'm doing pretty damn good. I'm glad to be here.
Now, you guys have a couple things to go over before we get started to the main talking segment. Of course, you guys can join us over on our Twitch page at twitch.tv/The Rob and Dan Show, as well as the Pantheon Rise of the Fallen chat room. We'll be taking questions, comments, and suggestions. You can join us there at pantheonrotf.com/chat to interact with us while we're live on the air. Again, thank you everyone for joining us through those systems. State of the game. Ben, you just had a couple real quick comments to go over.
Salim did, actually.
Oh, Salim, I'm sorry, Salim.
That's fine. Really, there's not much different from last week. We're still cranking out some of the internal stuff. Tony's put out some stuff, or you're going to be putting out some stuff this week based on some internal decisions that we've made and just continued awesomeness that Tony keeps putting out. I've been working with our programmer on ability stuff and, just continuing to kind of get that infrastructure done. So, nothing too different from last week, but we're just still cranking along.
There we go. You guys have put a couple new changes on the website. You guys are always updating your website. You're showing now exactly how many supporters and how much you've raised at the top right there when people go to the front page. That's amazing. You guys have made a lot of cash, have a lot of supporters going on there. You also have updated a little bit of the personal contributions as well as the point systems, it looks like. Tony, I believe Salim mentioned you guys have some updates coming out. What can you tell us? What have you been updating the last few weeks since we've had a chance to talk to you? And what's coming up?
Well, we've been working on a few things. One, I think the largest thing that we've been keeping under wraps is I have somebody doing linguistics for me. So we have the ogre language coming out called Grun this Wednesday with the set of runes. And there is actually something really special coming out tomorrow, but I don't want to really give too much hint on that.
Yeah, don't just wait.
Yeah,
Only
I'm not.
A few hours to wait.
I'm not.
Ixnay on the special A.
But I have my team and stuff have been working on a lot of different things. I mean, and a lot of it has to do with some setting up some of the larger announcements that we have later. Like even the one today was something called the Stones of Pantheon, and that's actually a major landmark in the world of Terminus. And you'll be seeing more of that as you learn more about Terminus. You'll hear more and more about that landmark and the stories around it.
Now, the Stones of Pantheon, I have the website pulled up in front of us here. It's described as an iconic monument of Terminus. There's 5 stones: ogre, elf, human, revenant, and dwarf. Is there anything you can tell us about why these stones represent different races?
Well, it says in there that nobody's really sure, but they're guessing that they're related to there's a band of heroes that helped put an end to the bloodshed that was going on in a time called the Martial Era. And these heroes, they just simply vanished, and then this monument appeared right after they vanished. So the belief is that those are the races of the heroes, but nobody knows for certain. And you'll learn as time goes on.
And you said you guys have some updates you cannot talk about coming up into the next few days. Of course, people can watch the front page to find out more about those when they do hit.
Yeah, a pretty big one is going up tomorrow. It's some pretty big news in terms of stuff that's going into the game.
Things.
That's about as specific as I'll get right now, but yeah.
Things and stuff. There might be words on the page that people.
There may be, and there may be colors.
Oh, this is going to be exciting. Going over to the main topic for today. Again, you guys can contribute in the chat room, pantheonrotf.com/chat. We're going to be watching that like a hawk to get your guys' thoughts on what we're discussing today. Combat systems. what's going on with the combat systems in Pantheon, and why is it our talking point for this evening?
Well, initially, what we've done for the past few roundtables is we've taken topics from the think tank, which has been great, and we'll do that again in the future. But I wanted to sort of change things up a little bit again this week and just sort of do a dynamic theme. So I put a post in on the Apprentice Developers forums, and just a direct question to see what people wanted to talk about this week, and the community came back and told us that they want to talk about combat system and how it works in Pantheon, and maybe a little bit on hero essences. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Combat mechanics wise, what do you guys have down so far? What can we expect that you guys have in stone for the combat systems of Pantheon?
Well, I don't think anything's ever in stone, but
except the stones of Pantheon.
Yes, the stones of why am I? Sorry, the chat's distracted me.
I thought the bad pun was
our
I apologize.
Our combat, it's focused more on kind of slowing down combat, less abilities. When you're in combat, you can only have so many abilities loaded at a time. So, if you've played Guild Wars or anything like that, Guild Wars, when you go PvP, you can only lock in 7 abilities, I think was the max. Or if you played Old School EverQuest, spellcasters had, 8 spell slots. I think that's grown to 10 now or something. And they could load their abilities while they were in combat, if they sat and meditated and took the risk. But our combat is being built around that same ideal, where basically you go into combat with your hand. If you were playing cards, this is what's in your hand currently, and you can play these cards. The only way that you can change out that hand is out of combat. So that's really the kind of the core of it. There's a lot of outlying things that support it, that go into progression to combat and things like that. But definitely just a slower pace of combat, a more EQ-esque style combat, fewer abilities, but the abilities you have matter. Things like stun and slow and stuff, those things actually having a point again instead of just being part of a rotation. So yeah, but that's kind of the quick and dirty explanation.
Again, guys, if you have any questions or comments, maybe concerns you might have even on the combat system, you guys can voice them in the chat room. We will get them on the air, get them as discussion topics here. Going into exact weapon mechanics, do you guys have a concept on weapon mechanics yet? Is there going to be weapon skill? Are you going to have to train with different weapons? Or is it going to be more of, okay, each class has these specific weapons they can use, and that's it?
We have, right now, the way that I want the item system to work, and it should work this way, we've worked out some things, but is that anyone can equip anything. Anyone, if you want to put a sword in your hand, you're a wizard, go ahead. Your skills, if you want to raise your sword skill, go ahead and raise your sword skill, but how effective you are with the sword ultimately is going to be hindered or helped based on your class. So there's no notion of the warrior is a master of swords, and that's really all you can equip. Now, if you want to raise, your wand skill as a warrior, go right on ahead. If you want to, make casters mad by rolling on the wand that dropped, that's totally your prerogative. But yeah, we I've said a lot of times that I'm all for items being more open, because I hate people having to only go after this. It makes itemization from a player standpoint a lot simpler to understand. Oh, that's a sword. I'm a sword guy. Obviously, this was put on this table for my class. So it's easy for me to compare A to B and see which one's better. But I think that when you're talking about a role-playing game and immersion, anyone can pick up a sword. How good they are, it's questionable. But yeah, we'll have skills. You have to raise skills. I'm even thinking about doing some sort of skill attrition. If you get a sword and you use it, if you raise all your skills up and you get a sword and you just start just using swords, that your other skills would actually start to decrease because you're not using those skills as much. But that's kind of down the line decision.
Okay. Question from chat. Let's see who asked that one. Max63, preset spell sets. Yes or no? Are you going to have the ability to hot switch between certain presets, or is it all going to be, okay, switch out one by one on the fly?
No, you actually, so hero essences and templates in general, they're all built around that. Abilities are gained in multiple ways. You can gain ability just by leveling up, and more than likely you'll have to go to a trainer or purchase it, whatever. We haven't talked about that yet. And then you can also get abilities as drops. You can find a monster. He does some crazy cool stun. He may drop that as an ability that you can now load if you're the proper class. So the way that in other words, another thing that you can get through drops and just normal progression, those are called templates or hero essences. The template is basically it's kind of a thematic card holder. To go back to the notion of playing cards. So I could get Rob's the great rogues template, right? And obviously your class is rogue. The abilities that you use are rogue-like, but you can use a crap load of abilities because you were like level 4 billion when we defeated you. But when I get the template, it's young. It's I'm basically taking your power and fusing it with myself. So the template starts out and I can slot like 3 abilities in it. Each template has XP on it. So the more I use that template, the more it grows in power. And as it goes up in levels itself, it'll unlock new slots, and it'll also gain passive abilities. Like any abilities in this gain an additional 1.5% power or gain an additional effect. A lot of passive stuff will go in there. If it's a notable template, like Rob the Ultimate Rogues template, what we want to do is once you max it out, you'll be able to I would be able to actually take on your visage. I'd actually be able to look like you when I go into combat, and I gain like this extra ability. So when you use abilities, and there's a rabbit hole here regarding these things, but templates have different affinities within them. So each slot can take a certain degree of power ability. So an ability can have a 3-star power, for lack of a better way to describe it. And a certain slot can take up to a 3-star power or whatever like that. So you have to kind of mix and match and know what you're doing there. But on top of that, each slot has kind of a color affinity, which goes into kind of a notion of schools of magic or magic types. Really, it's just color coding for us. And on each template, there's effectively a build-up power. So I got your template, and you have this crazy cool power, but that power requires that I be in combat for a while and I build up this meter, and then I can execute that power. The synergy of abilities to that special ability are linked back to the notion of the color and the power. So even though the slot says that it takes a black, you can put in any color ability you want in there. It doesn't matter. But if you put in the proper color ability, as you use it, that'll increase your power meter faster, which means I can use that ability more often. Like I said, it's a rabbit hole to describe it. But it's complex. It's a little complicated, but to explain. But it all goes into you progressing that thing through use. So yeah, if you have if you've leveled 3 or 4 of them, to get back to the question of swapping, when you're out of combat, the notion is that you would just click and go through your templates that you've made and just click one and load it up. There'll be a time involved in doing that, and there'll be a refresh, and often you can do it.
And so you're saying like I could create a template for my character and then I could give that to another player?
No. So we got Rob, or you got Rob's drop. That's yours. You now have that base template. Now you can slot stuff in it and save that off as basically a filled up template, right? Whenever I load Rob's template, it'll have these abilities in it. You can make another one using that same template. The base template will grow. It will get the XP, unlocking slots and stuff. So if you want to make 2 with 2 different sets of abilities, you can do that.
And this
retain all the growth.
is a template dropped off of an NPC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you're saying Rob, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I got a template and give it to you?
Because you're thinking, sorry, yeah. He's
I was
a bad
thinking-
guy. He's a guy we're killing.
I was
Oh.
well. That is Rob, but that.
Oh.
Another point entirely. Oh, I was thinking, Rob and I could exchange templates, and all of a sudden, my character looked like Rob's, and Rob's character looked like mine.
Oh. They're not going to be tradable because they're effectively just become a part of your character. You're unlocking the template on your character.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. We did have a couple more questions in chat. If I can scroll up to find that next one. There it is. X Mortis asks, will Melee be like Vanguard, where they had a great selection of spells and abilities, or more like EQ, like where they had 4 or 5 button mashing abilities? So they have, they too have to make the same choice as with few set cards for each combat?
Well, huh?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Let's just take the first part of the question.
Right.
While there will probably be a plethora of abilities available, right now the max at top template growth would be 7 abilities available to you in combat. Whether that counts the build-up ability or not, I haven't decided yet. But that's it. You in a moment-to-moment combat experience, you're going to have a max of 7 abilities. Whether that includes things like long-term buffs and stuff like that, I need to work out. I really don't want that to be a part of that because you cast a buff that lasts an hour, you shouldn't have to load up a template to do things like that. So that's something it's actually something that I'm currently trying to figure out. But yeah, it's at any given time in combat, you should have no more than about 7. Obviously things can change as we start getting these things worked out, but that's the idea.
How, coming from KTAM, how is the template system going to try to avoid or bend away from cookie cutter builds and how cookie cutter things can be at times at the upper tiers of a game?
Bend away from cookie cutter builds.
Or will there be cookie cutter?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that it'll be cookie cutter builds because, there's always going to be some case of this is the best thing that you should use for this or whatever. But when I'm saying that you can literally load whatever template you want that works with your class, and swap in and out whatever mix of stuff you want to. There's probably going to be 1 or 2 things that people just, hey, I know this will work out well. I know it's going to do some power. Awesome. I'm going to do this. But for those that want to experiment and kind of break the mold, it's there. And it also depends on encounters. I mean, cookie cutter build works. Cookie cutter build is probably going to come out of just doing, trash mobs or whatever a lot. But, if we're able to have diversity when it comes to named mobs and different encounters and stuff like that, those encounters will call for things like stuns and stuff like that. So you need to have loaded, and you need to not just use them willy-nilly. You need to cast Paralyze on this guy. You need to curse this guy. You need to do these different things and play off of those things. So, you're always going to get some sort of cookie cutter build with any system that has some sort of customization of character, whether it be AAs or something like this. But I think that our content is where we can get away from that. But there'll always be some room for that, and I don't really see that as an issue. If it's something that if the masses are comfortable with, hey, if you want to play this class and be able to kick some butt, you can use this build. But if you want to be the wizard that's dual wielding swords and still casting, rain and fire down on people, dude, give it a try.
What about the specializations that each class is going to have access to? When is that going to come into play combat-wise? Is there a specific level you have set that, now it activates? Or is it going to be a gradual thing?
Specializations as in
class
what?
Specializations, the 2 different bends that each class has.
The 2. Really, right now, the two paths for Rogue are literally based on the template that you have loaded. So you get a Planeswalker template. If you want to go down that path and use those abilities, then you invest in that template and you level it up, and you get more Planeswalker hero templates, and you see what different stuff you can do. If you rather be a rogue, normal rogue, then you go after those. If you want to experiment with both, then get them all. How many there are, can't say. Really, that's up to what Tony can give me and just how creative we can be when it comes to ability diversity and stuff. But really, the split pass is more of a just kind of a thing, just kind of a different thinking, a different take on the core class. I like the two different sets of gameplay, but also I don't like the notion of having 400 different classes. And I don't think that someone should invest in a class and then, in order to try something else out, that they'd have to remake a rogue, right? If I want to do a Planeswalker and I went down this rogue path, I have to basically start all over. So yeah, they're just really kind of just different gameplay styles that you can actively switch between based on templates.
Sure. You mentioned Tony. Let's bring him into the conversation here on this. How exactly do you factor into this, Tony? What do you need to get to Salim when it comes to the classes and templates for this scenario?
We're talking about heroes, because most of the stuff most of our abilities are harnessed by a player. So you find out in the world, you can find relics from all these heroes. As a matter of fact, we're starting a series of short stories, and the first one came out last week, and it's based on a hero, and that hero is going to have a whole bunch of relics in the world, and players can go about. He's a rogue, so if a rogue can go out and get his relics, they can get his abilities, right? Mm-hmm. So there's going to be these heroes and abilities for all these different types. There might be, definitely, like we talked about, something special for collecting all the known relics of a certain hero. But I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do with that yet. But we're already started a list of these heroes and looking at their classes and the races and trying to find really special stuff that we can do for each one of them, just so people can play with, dabble in a little bit of in a little bit of customization, and then also just doing really exotic things that you normally can't do. But there will be those exotic ones, abilities and artifacts that they're tied to would be probably a lot more rare than a more common ability that you can normally get as a rogue.
So abilities.
If I can, go ahead. Sorry.
Abilities are in templates more tied to items and unique pieces of loot than going to a trainer and saying, "Hey, I'd like to learn more stomp or a jump or something."
There'll be a mix of both, but like I said, the more potent stuff is linked to an individual hero or whatever artifact, whatever it ends up being. So we really want you to go out and get them, just to it's just cool. I killed this guy. Not only do I get the sword that he has equipped in his hand, but I just got some of his power. Or he was using the power of another hero, and I took that essence from him. But I guess one way people could think about the heroes and how I could envision them being set up. If you think about League of Legends, stuff like that, just how the different heroes are set up, and they all have the kind of different abilities. That's one thing that Jason and I have used as a reference point when talking about the combat system and how we could see the abilities being laid out. We're hoping that people can build templates to kind of experiment with a different gameplay style within their class, right? I load a stun here, I load this ability. Oh, let's see how these two play together. Oh, I really like this. People may look at you like you're crazy, but there's a very particular situation, a reason you made that template, and it works really well for that. So I'm hoping that comes out as the system develops.
There we go. Someone finally noticed the Van Halen hat.
Of course.
It only took
it's trademark. It's trademark for everything I own.
We're at about the halfway mark here, a little before the halfway mark, guys. A reminder, make sure you go over to pantheonrotf.com/chat and get involved in the conversation. We are talking directly with you guys, making a bridge between yourselves and the developers here to get your conversations and thoughts on the air. Also, please consider the think tank for your conversations, as well as the forums at pantheonrotf.com. Very important that you guys do so if you want your say in on this title. Moving on with other parts of the combat system, what kind of global cooldowns or restrictions or limitations are people going to have to work with when it comes to combat?
I don't really want to have a global cooldown. I mean, EverQuest had a very small one for spell casting, which we might do. And then if we did, it's probably performance related. But really, right now, there's no need for it. Each thing will have individual refresh time. Once again, the global cooldown is effective for a game that has you pressing a lot of abilities in quick succession. It makes sense there. We are focused less on that. So we really don't need, a 2.5 second lag and you doing stuff. You're going into combat with a select amount of abilities, and those abilities may or may not have a longer refresh time. Those abilities may or may not take a long time to cast when you're talking about being a caster. So we really, right when we started this, I think it's probably one of the first things that we said was that we don't want to have global cooldown, because global cooldowns they're just not fun to us, at least not in the game that we're making.
What kind of restrictions will there be then? Is there anything that holds people back from just hitting as many buttons as physically possible?
Oh yeah, I mean, refresh times and stuff like that. If you start casting one spell, you can't cast another spell while you're casting that. There's certainly a slight. You go to cast something, you can't cast something on top of it. If you want to press a bunch of buttons at once, then the first one you hit will fire. If you want to spam melee abilities or whatever, you can go ahead and do that. Some abilities will have a certain number of uses in combat and things like that. So you have to be careful on what you're doing. The game is more auto attack based and kind of watch and wait and use your abilities when is most at the most opportune time. Sorry. So yeah, if you want to spam them, then you can spam them. You'll either run out of mana or energy, whichever ends up being called. And spells are obvious. Spells, they take upwards of 5 seconds or whatever to cast. So you really can't do anything else while you're doing that.
Now, speaking on cast times and whatnot, macros. A couple people have asked about macros in chat. Are you going to allow them, and how advanced or restrictive is the macro system going to be if you're going to include it?
Yeah, we'll have a macro system. I'm certainly not against macros. How extensive they are, don't know. We'll have to figure it out once we get to that point.
Haven't really thought about that yet.
C++ in order to use the macros.
You see, now Rob would actually really enjoy that.
Notepad++.
If enemy is running away, fireball, fireball, fireball.
Yeah, I don't mind macros. I mean, not having them sucks. I mean, the convenience. There's just some things that you want to do conveniently, whether you want to build some uber macro that's just one button. But yeah, and once again, when you have 400 abilities that you could cast at any given time, and you're built around doing a very specific rotation, you are compelled to make a macro that has all your abilities in it. We are trying to avoid compelling you to do that by effectively limiting the amount of abilities that you're going to need to use in combat, and making those abilities be more important at certain times instead of just something that you spam all the time.
Kabarak had a question in chat. Will casters have an auto attack style ability, as some games have implemented? Examples: auto fire wands, something that matches melee strikes, and the same for ranged classes.
Yes, they will.
Okay. Well, that's all there is to say.
In all all caster damage is going to be based on weapon damage as well. So you, as a caster, you're not going to not care about the power or whatever it ends up being called of your weapon. That will segue into your ability damage or your spell damage as well.
So the damage of, let's say, one of the wizard's lightning bolts, for example, that's going to be partially based off of the damage that their weapon, their wand, or their staff, or whatever puts out.
The power of your wand adds to the power of your spell. I mean, it kind of works, right? I'm casting a spell through this object or whatever. So yeah.
Convo asking, will it be possible to switch between class specializations and possibly max out templates for both? For example, could I switch between Frenzy and Aspect at max level?
Yes. You can swap out whatever template you acquire and use and level it up. That is the current plan.
Are you planning on any... I know you said might be some degradation over time, some attrition after a while. Is there any restrictions to that system, or do you want people to be able to say, well... I'm going to be Frenzy for right now, but later on I might have to go Aspect. Hot switch.
The attrition would be more in skills, but in the case that you just described, they could do that if they invested the time to level up, the various different templates. Then they did that because they want to be able to do that. So that's fine. I have no problem with that. Like I said, there will be a time on switching and then a refresh time on switching again. So if you want to do that, you're not going to just be doing it constantly, at least not within a short amount of time.
Moving on, targeting, how targeting is going to function. I know in chat, Ben, you mentioned that there's going to be both a foe and a friendly target that you're going to allow multiple targets at the same time. How advanced is that system going to be? Are spells going to be smart enough to say, well, this spell is supposed to go to a friend, this spell is supposed to go to an enemy?
The targeting will be... Oh, wait, were you asking Ben or... Sorry.
No, I answered a question in chat, but...
Targeting will be very similar to Vanguard. We had the offensive and defensive targets. The spells will be set up in a way where they know, hey, this is this particular part of the spell is for my defensive target or my off target or target of target. That'll all be handled on the ability side of it.
Mm-hmm. And what about ground-based targeting, where you, let's say, select fire, rain of fire, something like that, and you say, okay, it's going to be in this area?
Yeah, we'll have... sorry, I guess I didn't answer the question fully.
That's fine.
So as far as targeting goes, there will be click target, there'll be ground target, obviously PBAEs, rain. I think that pretty much covers the gambit. We have right now actually a cool targeting thing. If anyone's played games like Omega Boost or whatever, any game that has like Merv grenades where you basically can highlight, you'll lock on, it'll lock on a bunch of targets, and then fire all the grenades out. We actually have a thing right now where if you have a spell and it can be an AE spell, what you do is you activate it, and then you drag your mouse over all the targets that you want to hit, and you get a little indicator on the targets that you've locked on, and then you press it again, and it'll fire the ability at those targets. So it's actually really, really cool.
So let me get this straight here. Instead of having to focus on a specific zone and a singular zone target, you could say, well, I want an AoE to hit. I want to hit all these targets.
Yeah, if it's a targeted AoE, if it's a fireball that we say can be an AE, if it's projectile AE or whatever, you could say click. I mean, obviously balance wise, we'll probably have a max target thing on that, but right now it's a lot of fun to pop in there, click on a skeleton, just drag your mouse and just let it go.
That sounds incredibly simple to use, all things considered. I'm surprised no one's done it before. What about point blank AoEs? Are there cone effects that you're gonna use? The best one I can think of is Dragon's Breath from WoW, where it's this frontal cone. Do you have any of those? Are you going to be using those?
Yeah, we'll use that stuff. Sure, it's pretty straightforward stuff, and it makes sense, right? In the context, right? Dragon fire shooting forward shouldn't hit people behind him. So we'll definitely have that type of stuff. For players and NPCs.
Yeah, sure. Lyrena's asking, there won't be any heal and buffs on enemies that you can just toss out by accident, like in EverQuest.
If the details of NPCs don't know, but if an NPC is your ally, I don't see any problem. We wouldn't stop you from being able to buff them. Unless the spell is defensive target only, which actually, if they're your ally, they would technically be that. Sure, if you want to buff them because role player wise you want to give this guy a buff, it's fine. If some druid is over there kiting your friendly dwarves and you want to give them a little bonus because you don't like the druid kiting your buddy dwarves, then sure, you can buff them. Right now, there's no plans to stop that. We've never really discussed not doing that.
Put an end to dwarf murder.
Yeah, I honestly, I think it's cool to be able to do that. Now, obviously, we don't want people, doing it to grief lobbies and stuff like that. So you take the good with the bad. So we just have to see how that works out.
Buff up a snake with 3,000 hit points.
Well, actually, how about healing spells that do damage to undead?
Yeah, we'll have that. We'll have that for sure. Yep. As a big FF fan, that yes, absolutely.
Going back over here, I missed a question. Where is it? Sorry, guys, I'm trying to keep up with the. There it is. Sogato. I'm not pronouncing that correctly. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. Sogata. Right. If AoE spell is cast, will AoE spells hit friendly targets inside the range? It will hit everything, or will they only hit unfriendly targets? Are they going to be smart enough to tell, oh, this is a friendly PC, we don't want to damage it?
Yeah, basically the spell is set up to hit your offensive target, so that's all it would hit.
Okay, so there's not going to be any friendly fire in the game?
No.
Okay.
It's not intentionally.
Not intentionally.
Original idea for the Fury wizard was that when he goes full on ballistic, that he basically just becomes an atomic nuke when his timer is up, and he would just blow up and just obliterate anything around him, including party. But after much discussion, you realize that potentially, while cool the first couple of times, potentially either you won't get groups or someone will find some crazy way to exploit that. So yeah, we decided not to do that.
Okay. D-Base, a couple people would like this question answered. To what degree do you guys feel environment will impact abilities? Standard resist type stuff? Or could a lava zone, for example, shorten an ice effect, or water cause lightning to go AE?
We haven't done a lot of discussion on that. That's really down the road stuff, but if we, I guess we actually have talked about like weather affecting stuff like that. If it's raining, these types of spells are more powerful, which is a similar system that what was used in FF11, and something we were talking about doing in Vanguard for a little bit. I was actually talking to our lead programmer today about mitigation stuff, and saying that you could have high mitigation but be in a zone where maybe it's hot or whatever, so everything in there has this kind of extra fire based damage to its attack. So you may have high physical mitigation, but if your fire resist sucks, well, you're not getting this extra damage from that. So while it's not necessarily saying that it would affect spells, affect the player spells, we are thinking along the lines of the environment having some sort of influence. If that ends up being spells, sure. I mean, it all just becomes more and more of a balancing nightmare when you throw that stuff on. And right now we're at the just the foundation of stuff.
Sure. Are resists going to be something that people have to build up stat wise, or is it more of a side thing?
No, resist will be important.
Okay.
You will have to give up slots or whatever of power to get resists and things like that.
Another very important point, Kabarak. Oh, that's this has been a point of contention for a lot of games that I've enjoyed. How will in-combat resing work? Specifically, res abilities like VG, unrestricted, etc.
Once again, that's a big question that I really couldn't answer with any at any definite level right now. But really, there's it's just another one of those things where when we think about the games that we're using as inspiration, we don't mind you being rezzed in combat, because we're not talking about our it's not going to take you half a second to cast a spell. If you want to cast a res, well, you are now standing there casting a spell that's going to take a while to cast. You are bringing someone into combat who is going to be debuffed significantly. So if you want to do that, if you have the wherewithal to pull that person, make sure that person's pulled to the side outside of AoE range or whatever, and they're able to recover, and if the res effects don't put them in a state where it's not worthwhile contribution wise, and they want to rush back into combat, then that's fine, because they'll probably die again. So don't see the need for limiting in combat reses or having specific in combat res spells, simply because it's going to take time for you to do that stuff, and the negative side of resurrection it will be significant. So if you want to do that, it's fine, because like I said, you'll probably die again if you're just rushing back into combat.
Sure. Okay.
But we'll have to see. Let's see.
That's the majority of questions that I've seen. Ben, I know you're watching chat as well. Did I miss any questions?
Not from what I've seen.
Okay. Tony, you've been sitting there in silence for most of the show. We do apologize for that.
Don't worry about it.
I know you're not much of the combat design person. Would you be up for taking story questions as well if people had any? Of course, continuing the combat questions as well.
Yeah.
But would you be up for a couple story questions if they had them?
Yeah, I'm good for any lore questions, but
Okay. Well, we'll continue taking combat questions as well, guys.
I got a lot of chats open, so it'll answer. I mean, I'm always answering questions, so.
Well, there we go. So got up. With the various classless racial abilities proposed on the forums, are there any that need to change direction/purpose with the proposed class or race?
I haven't checked out a lot of that stuff. If you guys are offering ideas for stuff, and just offer the ideas. If we're going to use them, if we like them or think they'll work, then we'll just make them work. So I mean, your contribution to us is to be as creative as you can. Don't let some mechanics that you may not know about make you second guess any idea that you may have. Just put it forward. The worst thing that can happen is that it doesn't go in a game, which it already isn't in a game, so I wouldn't worry about it. So be as creative as possible. Once we get down to having to come up with different ability stuff and themes and flavor for things, you guys are going to be invaluable to us. So don't worry about anything that I'm putting out there or however things are going to work. If you have an ability idea or a racial idea that works based on the race, then just throw it up, and we'll look at it, and if we think it's a good idea, then we'll use it.
The gentle reminder that apprentice developers are apprentice developers for a reason. Yep. Get your ideas out there.
Yep.
There we go. Combat regen, health and or mana regen. How is it going to function coming from Crusader?
This is another discussion that we need to have deeper of, but once again, very similar to EverQuest and Final Fantasy. You regen at a certain tick. Probably going to need to have food and stuff like that to even regen at all. We'll have to see once we actually sit down and design the food system. But yeah, you'll want mana buffs. You'll want those things. You'll have to potentially have to sit down to regain mana. We'll have to see if that's one of those systems that should be kept around or not. But so yeah, it's going to be slow. There's no, I'm out of combat now, and in 2 seconds I'm at full health and full mana. We're, like I said, we're slowing things down a lot. We're going back to stopping, people having to rest a little bit. People like, oh man, when's this thing going to spawn? I need to sit down real quick, get some mana, get some mana, throw a heal up. We're going back to that. When people stopping and maybe having a little conversation in between pulls, things like that. Just kind of enjoying the experience in the game and not just constantly going.
Okay. With the template system being worked on into lore, is there any chance it might be thrown a pre-alpha? I think you guys have already answered that. Nothing is necessarily in stone yet that you have, put down and said, this is it.
Well, and the way that it's set up, it doesn't really. The lore side of things is literally, we have heroes, and this is the stuff they could do, and then the content and the mechanic side of it is that, okay, this is what they could do. Let's make that work in game. If we decided to get rid of that notion, it really doesn't. It wouldn't impact lore. At least it shouldn't impact lore. At least not to some serious level. I mean, Tony can correct me if I'm incorrect, but I've wanted it that way intentionally, that because of stuff like that. We still want to have great heroes. We still want to have awesome artifacts. We still want to have that stuff. And I don't want a game mechanic that just went awry or just didn't work out to now all of a sudden both disciplines have to redo all their work. If the mechanics don't work, then that's our fault, and we should be the ones that have to suffer and rethink things.
Tony, you've been answering a question in chat. Did you want to vocalize any of that? Because you're getting a little information out there.
Oh, somebody was just asking me if the faction question on whether the Ethosians and the gnomes got along. Because the Ethosians are they're a tribe of the humans, and both they and the gnomes have a very large interest in arcane. On anything arcane, but they're actually rivals and have had wars, so I was just pointing that out to them. But a lot of I'm actually working on the factions right now, and I don't know when we're going to release who likes who, but that was something that I just had to figure out last week. And some of the people that we have already told you are friends, some of that's changing, because I take the world as it is, like right now. Whatever I told you, like say if you started on Kickstarter reading the lore, if they were friends, then right after that, the second planar collision started. So things in the world started changing. So I'm going to be informing people about these changes as we go along, so that by the time we get to launch the game, there will actually be a difference between things are evolving year after year, month after month, things are happening in the world. If not in paper, definitely in my mind.
Yeah, how much are you taking into consideration some of the different stories that other people are putting out there than stories about different individuals and different sects of factions and things like that?
You mean the community?
Yeah.
I read everything the community puts out there. I mean, I love everything they have. Not all of it works with what we're actually doing, because we really need, like everything else, like the combat and magic, all that stuff, we need all the foundation for them built first. So right now, me and my group, the Lore 4, are just setting down a foundation, and then we'll start to filter in some of these ideas, because these people are the community. They're part of this new way of developing a game. I want them to hear their input from the ground up. So, and where some of their ideas are really interesting, we will, try and integrate them.
Okay. I just saw an answer, and then what's going on in here? Grouped combat. Bonus to XP for group hunting, or are we going to lose XP per mob for killing as a group?
We are not splitting group XP.
Okay. There was a previous question about group XP too, is if you're going to still get XP if you died, are you still going to get XP, or is that point your system shut down, you can't get XP, you're dead?
Tough
question, I know.
Hey, really, that's another one of those things where the assumption is probably that you wouldn't get XP because you're dead. But because you'll be able to be in a rest state, whether we're going to assign XP or not, it's just something that we can decide at that point. But right now, it's probably that you wouldn't get XP.
There we go. Sogat was asking if Aradune is on Veil and shirt.
What? Aradune?
He's asking if you have him on your shirt right now.
No.
Nope.
No.
Sorry, you misfired there.
What'd you have for lunch there? Is that a little Aradune on your shirt there?
See, question Max63 has another one. I hope there will be places to hunt with small groups too, just in case we cannot get a full group of 6, like 2 or 3 in a group. Is that going to be something?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our game is focused on group and being social, but being social doesn't require 5 other people. So yeah, it's like I said, we're not going to split group XP. So not being group with someone is not necessarily the smartest thing in the world. There may be someone's going to figure out some way to solo or whatever. I mean, that's just the nature of things. Some classes are just the way they're built, or just the way the players build. They're going to figure out some way to solo. That person, if they really want to do that, they will not be getting the most efficient XP, and they won't be building the friendships and relationships that we want people to build. So we'll definitely support 2 and 3 man groups, and that's awesome. On average, it's probably what you're going to be able to get in a quick gameplay session, unless you have a static group you run with.
If a couple of folks do end up figuring out how to, as slow and as tedious as it might be, solo, are you going to knock them down a peg and say, well, this character class is exactly what's enabled it, we need to cut this down to size a little bit? Is that something you look at, or are you just going to say, you know what, they figured it out, they took the time, whatever?
I have. So if it's an actual bug, right? Like there's an ability busted or whatever, and they're exploiting, then obviously we fix that. But if someone has, like I said, there's going to be a lot of room for creativity. If someone figures out, something that is it just works, and it's not like they're getting ahead of everyone. It's just this person really wants to solo, and he just figured out, a template and a weapon and skill set that works for him. Why would we? I mean, other classes might complain, oh, why can this guy do this? Well, this guy can do this because he sat down and he just experimented with this stuff. He probably died a lot. And he's found something that works for him. We're not going to make changes to every class for that guy. But, if there is something, we have to evaluate everything, obviously. If there is something crazy going on, then we'll have to make changes that are appropriate.
We're coming up to the last 5 minutes of tonight's broadcast, Pantheon Roundtable number 4. Ben, I'll let you go ahead and do it this time. How can people support Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, both monetarily and otherwise?
Well, again, we're still really trying to get the word out. We did our initial push with Kickstarter, and we got quite a few people hearing about Pantheon, but now we need to let everybody know that we're still going. I think that's a large misconception right now, is that since the Kickstarter didn't go through, that things have stopped. Well, that's not the case at all, obviously, as our watchers can tell. So yeah, just help us get the word out that Pantheon is still going strong, and we still need all the support that we can get. Team's still going. We've got a few more opportunities coming up as well, so there's still lots more coming up. We just need to make sure that everybody knows about it. We're still continuing to contact our networks and our fans everywhere. We're working with some fan sites on some various stuff as well. So any kind of involvement really goes a long way. The more you're involved, the more it helps out.
You guys, again, do have the amount you've raised and your number of supporters on the front page as well. People can see right there you guys have gotten a lot of your support, not just back from that Kickstarter, but from other sources and beyond. I'm not going to just say numbers right off the bat there, but people can go and look for themselves. Also, if you go to Pantheon Rise of the Fall, PantheonROTF.com, wow, and you haven't purchased the game on pre-order yet, or haven't looked at any of the support structures that are available through that, you should go ahead and do so. People can purchase if they've already made an account as well through the website. You just have to go to the shop button, if I'm not wrong with that, Ben.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Again, PantheonROTF.com is the website. Thank you for joining us tonight, everyone. You can find previous episodes of Pantheon, the Pantheon Weekly Roundtable, as well as the Pantheon Developer Series at youtube.com/The Rob and Dan Show. We have a playlist set up for all of the episodes, and you can find that right there on the front page. In addition, I would doubly encourage you to go over to ktamradio.com. After we're done here, they're going to have a post-game show as such, talking about some of the different things we covered on tonight's broadcast, as well as other subjects that are going on throughout the Pantheon community. Also, I would encourage you guys to go over to our group page over on the Pantheon website. There is an R&D group that you can join. You can keep up to date with everything we have going on. Also, the Robert Daniel and Sons Industries post. We have our third story up, the first actual story that Rob and I have going through the world of Pantheon. And the fourth post will be going up this Wednesday. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Any last closing thoughts, Ben, Salim, or Tony?
Just a big thank you to everybody for coming out. I see a lot of familiar faces again this week. It's good to see regulars returning. Some new faces, too. It's always good to see. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, this is fun. I love doing these. I really wish we could do them for like 4 hours because I could talk about this game forever. But yeah, hit me up on the site if you got any questions or if you're confused with anything I said. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Tony, anything else?
No, just that I love doing your show anytime I can. I'm sorry I missed last week, but I just
you had a good reason. You had a good reason.
Oh yeah, my daughter's birthday. I would have been in trouble for that one. But any other time, I'll definitely be here, and it's okay if there's not a lot of lore questions. I know enough about the game, but I also I definitely feel questions in the chat room if anybody's on. So we can, even if we don't talk about it on the show, I'll be around to answer them on chat.
Mm-hmm. Thanks again, everyone. Appreciate all those follows during the show. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate the support. Go over to ktmradio.com, guys. Post-game show starts in just about 10 to 15 minutes from now. We're heading off air for just a few moments. I'll be back on with more Heroes of the Storm right after this break. You're watching twitch.tv/The Rob and Dan Show.